World War I, also known as the Great War, was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. Fought between 1914 and 1918, it changed the political and social fabric of Europe and set the stage for the modern world as we know it today. But how did this cataclysmic event begin, and what were the long-lasting effects? To understand the origins of World War I, we need to look at the tangled web of alliances and rising tensions in Europe at the dawn of the 20th century. The continent was dominated by powerful empires: the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russia, France, and Great Britain. Rivalries over colonies, military might, and political influence created an unstable balance of power. Three major forces were at play. First, nationalism. Nations sought independence, as seen in the Balkans, where Slavic groups like Serbia wanted freedom from Austro-Hungarian rule. Second, imperialism. European powers were competing for overseas colonies, particularly in Africa, increasing hostility and competition. And third, militarism. Nations were building up vast armies, leading to an arms race that escalated tensions. The final ingredient was a complex system of alliances. Europe was divided into two major blocs: the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente, made up of France, Russia, and Great Britain. These alliances were meant to deter war, but, paradoxically, they ensured that any local conflict could quickly spiral into a global catastrophe. The event that lit the fuse of World War I occurred on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated by a Bosnian Serb nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austria-Hungary, with the backing of Germany, blamed Serbia for the assassination and delivered an ultimatum. When Serbia's response was seen as insufficient, Austria-Hungary declared war on July 28, 1914. What could have been a regional conflict quickly escalated due to the web of alliances. Russia mobilized in support of Serbia. Germany, in turn, declared war on Russia and France, and within days, Britain entered the war to defend Belgium, which Germany had invaded as part of its Schlieffen Plan to quickly defeat France. By August 1914, the world was at war. The early months of World War I saw rapid movements of troops, but soon the war bogged down into a deadly stalemate, especially on the Western Front. Trenches stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland, and both sides were locked in a war of attrition. The conditions were brutal. Soldiers lived in mud-filled trenches, enduring constant artillery bombardments, machine gun fire, and deadly gas attacks. While trench warfare defined much of the Western Front, the Eastern Front between Germany and Russia saw more fluid combat. Meanwhile, the war expanded to new theaters across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Japan, fighting on the side of the Allies, seized German colonies in the Pacific. Despite the scale of the conflict, neither side could break the deadlock. Major battles, like the Battle of Verdun and the Somme in 1916, resulted in massive casualties, but little territorial gain. By 1917, the war had reached a breaking point. Two major events shifted the balance of power. First, in April, the United States entered the war on the side of the Allies. Germany's policy of unrestricted submarine warfare, which sank civilian ships including the Lusitania, along with the interception of the Zimmermann telegram, an offer from Germany to Mexico to join the war against the US, convinced President Woodrow Wilson to act. Second, in the same year, revolution erupted in Russia. The Tsarist regime collapsed, and by the end of 1917, the new Bolshevik government, led by Lenin, signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, taking Russia out of the war. This allowed Germany to focus all its efforts on the Western Front, But with fresh American troops and resources arriving, the tide was turning. In 1918, Germany launched a final offensive in a desperate attempt to win the war, but the Allies, reinforced by American forces, counterattacked. The Central Powers began to crumble. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire faced internal revolutions, while Germany itself was on the verge of collapse. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed, and the guns fell silent. World War I had finally come to an end. The impact of World War I was profound. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany and redrew the map of Europe, dismantling empires and creating new nations. However, the seeds of future conflict were sown, as the treaty's punitive terms fueled resentment in Germany, contributing to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the outbreak of World War II just 2 decades later. Politically, the war saw the collapse of old monarchies and the rise of new ideologies. Socially, millions of lives were lost, and the physical and psychological scars of the war would last for generations. World War I, the war to end all wars, may not have achieved lasting peace, but its legacy continues to shape our world to this day.